Welcome to the Metaphysics Hour. I am your host, Rory Colgan. Today we are studying the 12th universal law. This particular law is called the law of self-expression, a very beautiful, important law for us to understand, especially for those of us in spiritual pursuits. We sometimes find that our humility or our concept of humility prevents us from expressing the trueness of what we actually are experiencing. And that is not only to our detriment, but it's to the detriment of everybody in that spiritual community. So this universal law can be described as that which exists has a natural emanation, a natural radiance. And we that exist as humanity have multiple facets that can be expressive and exuberant or inward. But regardless of whether we're sharing them outwardly or withholding them and keeping them inward, we're still emanating, we're still expressing. And so this law deals in the human spectrum a lot with honesty, needing to be honest. And not just honest of what you're thinking, but what you're feeling, and what you're doing as well. So you want to have honesty on all those levels. And then also you want to get to the honesty that is a spiritual honesty. It's like you as your true self radiating. Now that takes a little bit of time and we'll probably address that last, but let's just talk about what self-expression means in the physical world, in the emotional world, and in the mental world. Okay, so again, remember, universal laws are simply things or forces that create or govern all of creation. So their governance is that which we experience on a moment-to-moment basis. This particular law says that which exists has an emanation. It has its own radiation, its own boom. This is who I am, whether it's a star, whether it's a worm, whether it's a rock, whether it's some microorganisms in a petri dish or in your soil, in your square foot garden, doesn't matter. Everything has its own natural radiation. It is what it is. And one of the reasons people love being in the natural world, the world that is not created by man, but the world that has been created by Earth or whatever else you want to call it, those forces tend to exhibit their naturalness much easier than humanity does, especially if you strip it down to its basic levels. Like a tiger is going to be a tiger in the swamps of Bengal in eastern India. It's going to be itself. And sometimes that means it's going to attack humans, and sometimes that means it won't. But the point of it is that it's not going to, he or she, that tiger, is not going to stop being himself or herself. The tree, the oak tree, the pine tree, they express who they are unashamedly, without guilt. And so if we go back to the Garden of Eden story that was shared in the Genesis story of the Bible, which is a Judeo-Christian, I guess, fundamental book, you get to see that at one point we were a part of that natural component. We were the masters of that dominion, and yet at the same time, we didn't distinguish ourselves the way we do now. And so it was only by eating a particular type of fruit that the serpent made Eve eat, which then kind of got Eve and Adam into trouble. They got us kicked out of that. And then we noticed that we were finally naked, even though we were naked all the time. So at that point, we were naturally expressing ourselves. That was when we were still in God's good grace, as it were. But with these universal laws, all these laws in accordance and in working in concert, we can get back into God's good grace, the universe's good grace. So this law simply means that we have to express ourselves. So physically, that means that you express yourself by your clothing. You express yourself by your hair. You express yourself by what you put on your face. What you don't put on your face. You know, if I were to shave this, that would express something differently. If I kept my goatee up here, that would express something differently. All of these things are important in the sense that they can allow you to express who you are. But to the point that they become you, that your hair is you, then you have broken the universal laws or bent them or gotten out of harmony with them because you're not your hair. You know, we got to go back to the very first universal law we talked about, and that was the law of divine birthright, that you exist, and that means you exist beyond your physical body. You exist in a realm that is spiritual in nature, and so therefore can't be changed. It is eternal and imperishable. So if you get caught up in this expression, in this form, then you're not going to use this law very wisely. And so the physical component of this law is honesty, but it's also recognizing that this isn't all there is, that you don't want to stop just at physical expression, you know, what to wear, who to impress, that type of expression. That is only going to create pain and suffering eventually because it's not in harmony with this particular law. The self-expression means that you're more than a physical being, so you have to get into the emotional component, and that means you got to share your feelings. You have to be vulnerable. You have to learn how to express anger and frustration without making other people instantly throw up their guards. Now, they may throw up their guards even if you come across in a very tranquil, neutral manner about, I am angry. Please address this issue because it is frustrating me. You know, people might immediately become defensive regardless of how you present it. But you can actually do a lot more if you're not also psychically attacking a person when you are expressing your emotions. Now, if they're a positive emotion and the other person's probably going to feel in a similar way and uplifted from that positive emotion, then you don't necessarily have to be as neutral. It's nice to be neutral. It's actually wiser to be neutral because you don't want to get attached into the positive expression and avoid the negative expression. That's kind of the spiritualist downfall, is that we're like, we want balance, but we don't like bad emotions. We like good emotions. And so you're always constantly imbalanced. You can let both of them be when they are. So if you feel negative, express the negativity with neutrality, with awareness. The same thing with positivity. If you feel positive, express it with awareness. I love you. I, am in love with you. It's a positive thing, but it's best not to be attached to it, because what if she or he ends up saying, well, I love you too, but, man, that sucks. So what you have to do is express your love, but also don't be attached to it. Be expressive, but don't be attached to it. Because if you're attached to it, you're not using these universal laws, because the attachments that we have keep us where we are. And as we talked about before in one of these episodes, the law of evolution wants us to get better, wants us to grow, wants us to keep going. So we can't stay attached to what we have. And that means that sometimes the love, the positive, the joy, the happiness, those things change. And if they change, then hopefully they change for the better. And that is the purpose of the law of evolution. It makes things change for the better. So we have to be expressive emotionally, but also I recommend not being attached to the positive or to the negative. Any attachment is going to produce suffering. Commitment is different, and we'll talk about that later. But for right now, just recognize that law of self-expression is a physical thing, but it's also an emotional thing. And of course, it's a mental thing. How do you achieve emotional neutrality or mental stability when you have a lot of emotions? Well, you have to place your attention in your mind, in your thoughts, that there are thoughts that need to be expressed in a certain way, and that how you feel about those thoughts is important, but not God, not the most important, so to speak. So you have to realize that, okay, if I feel this way about a particular emotion, say, I love this person, why do I love this person? Well, mentally, you can understand that she's compassionate, she's caring, she's loving back to you. You love her simply because she exists. And so that starts to transcend into the top level of our expression, which is love just because, and that's the unconditional love. But mentally, there are reasons. There's reasons we hang out with the people we choose to hang out with, and there's reasons we don't hang out with the people we choose not to hang out with. So you have to recognize that this is an emotional and mental law as well. It's not just physical. So there's the expression that happens on all three of those levels. And then finally, most importantly, or maybe not most importantly, but just as important, is the spiritual expression. You have an essence that is very much like a star, and there's a lot of stars, as far as we can tell, or at least as far as science can tell, out in the galaxy and in the universe. And there's a lot of different varieties, and there's a lot of different ages. And so each one of us humans is a star, and we have an opportunity to express ourselves and to be ourselves. You know, who cares if you're a white dwarf, a brown dwarf, a red star, pulsar star? I don't know. My astronomy is fading on me. But the point is, there are a lot of different stars. So you want to express your light, and it's a full radiance. It's the illumination. And that is the highest use of this law, is that you express your enlightenment. Lao Tzu, Confucius, Muhammad, Jesus, Moses, Mahabharata. No, that's a holy book. There's one that founded Jainism, that guy, the naked guy. And there's some others out there, the Dalai Lama, or whoever else you want to throw into that pot. All of them have reached a similar state of awareness, a state of enlightenment, but they express it very differently. And so it's wise for us to recognize that when we reach that state of awareness, we will express it uniquely. And that is the universal law of self-expression. So all four categories: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. You use all four of these. Learn how to express them. Learn how to be honest. Also be tactful. You don't want to be so brutally honest that it sets people backwards, per se. Maybe sometimes you do, but that's the universal law of infinity, relativity, attraction, and all the others combined together, that you have to take these laws in concert, work them together in order to understand how best to use them and to what ends. Ideally, you're using them for your highest good and the highest good of all others. And if you do that, you are going to be benefited in the short term and in the long term. Sometimes it's hard to see it in the short term, but as you develop the sensibilities, you'll feel and experience that harmony with the universe. And then you'll know that, hey, man, the universe has my back. I can do anything I want as long as I stay in accordance with these principles. And then truly, at that point, you are self-governed. This is Rory Colgan from the Metaphysics Hour, wishing you to be well, be happy, be influential. And also, go to innerhealthtoday.com, go to the financial support if you want to donate to this cause so we can put out more videos. Got some exciting things coming up for you in the future, and just enjoy life, I guess. All right, talk to you soon.